If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Blog Talk Radio.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we've got a great show for you tonight. Not sure what happened to the audio there, but had a little glitch at the end. We're going to have a great show tonight. This April 12th, the week after the Masters. Had a very interesting Masters last weekend, and depending on who you're rooting for, you're either happy with who won or maybe a little disappointed if your player didn't win the Masters tournament. But nevertheless, we're here and going to have a great show tonight. Starting things off, of course, will be another great round of Coach's Corner, and I've got three fantastic golf professionals. All have been on the show as guests and also have been on Coach's Corner many, many times over the last several years. And a little bit later on in the broadcast, I'm going to be joined by my very special guest this evening, Greg Thorner. He's a great golf professional in the Tampa, Florida area, and also the owner of Break 30, the improvement movement. We're going to talk a little bit about him on the second half of the show. But let me just remind everybody before I bring the guys out on the panel that we are live every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central here on Blog Talk Radio. And just go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, or just simply type Golf Talk Live up in the search key, and that will take you to the main page. And as I said, we are live Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Central. For some reason, if you can't join us live, just scroll down on that page to the on-demand section, and all of the shows, including tonight's, will be there in their entirety, and you can listen to them when it's convenient for you. So if you can't join us live, not to worry, just visit the link and scroll down to the on-demand section, and you can hear the show there sometime later when it's convenient for you, or any of the other shows that have been on as well. You can also search it under a number of different social media platforms, including iTunes.com, Stitcher.com, and TuneIn.com, and under the podcast section, just type in, again, Golf Talk Live, and that will take you there. So if you want to listen to those on those social media platforms, you're welcome to do that as well. You can also call into the show anytime during the live broadcast. The number to call is area code 646-716-4667, or you can email questions or comments to me personally at my email address is ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And, of course, as all you know by now, if you've been following the show for any length of time, update on social media, facebook.com/Golf Talk Live blog is the main page, but also on my personal page, you can just search under my name, Ted Odorico, and you'll find it there as well. Also on LinkedIn.com under my personal name, and also on Twitter. If you go to Twitter and follow me there, and my handle is Ted and Buck, CEO, CEO, of course, in capital letters. So as I said, we got a great show for you tonight. Let me bring out the guys here, tell you a little bit about them, and then we'll get into our discussion for the evening here on the Coach's Corner panel. First up on the panel, of course, is no stranger to the panel, and as I said, has been a guest many times as well, John Hughes, PGA Master Professional, and now the president of the North Florida PGA section. And he was also the recipient in 2013 of the PGA of America's Horton Smith Award, and he's also a Golf Tips Magazine Top 30 instructor. Also, no slouch to the panel is Peter Egazarian. He's a PGA and TPI teacher professional with Traconic Golf Club. He's also the head men's golf coach with the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, and also the founder of Northeast Golf Performance and a member of the Proponent Group. And last, rounding out the panel, of course, also been on many times on the panel, and as a guest is Paul Castor. He's a golf coach, director of instruction at Forest Gate Country Clubs, and has been recognized by Golf Digest as one of the best teachers in New Jersey for 2017 and 18, and was selected by U.S. Kids Golf as one of 2017's top 50 kid teachers. So a great, well-rounded panel tonight. And guys, thank you for joining me tonight. Welcome to Coach's Corner.
Thanks so much for having us, Ted.
Yeah, thank you, Ted.
All right. So what we're going to talk about is our beginning golfers. These are golfers that have never played before. We're going to talk about a couple of areas. We're going to talk about the lessons area component to it, but we're also going to talk in a little bit more detail about golf clubs. Most beginners, many of them probably don't have a set of clubs yet, and we're going to talk specifically in a lot of different areas about what they should be looking for and why. So, John, I'm going to start with you, but before I do, I'm just going to read out a little bit here, and then we're going to get into discussion, and we're going to start with the equipment side of things here first. You know, the best golf clubs for beginning golfers are the ones that, of course, induce maximum forgiveness and improvement to help your ball striking ability. Sort of to combat the problem of inconsistent hitting, it's often recommended that an oversized club with a larger sweet spot, is an ideal situation. So we're going to talk about some other things specifically about that. But, John, I want to start with the driver, because this is an area that I think a lot of new beginners to the game kind of make mistakes with. When you're looking for a driver as a beginning golfer, you've never played the game or maybe played very, very little in your lifetime so far, what should you be looking for? And try to be as specific. I mean, obviously we don't have to get into necessarily all the measurements, but try to be as specific as you can. What should they be looking for, and what maybe should they, as a beginning golfer, stay away from? And I'm assuming the guys are still with me. John, are you?
Are you there?
I'm here still.
Okay. John.
I'm here.
Yeah, John. Did you hear the question? I'm not sure if you didn't hear that or not. Do you want me to repeat it? Okay.
I know. I heard the question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Ted? Okay. I'm not sure what happened there. Real quick, two simple things. As light and as forgiving as possible. Don't worry about length. When you're talking about specifics, we can talk more about that. And then try to put as much loft in your hand as you can. Loft's your friend. It's makes the club a little bit more forgiving. Gonna get the ball launched up in the air easier for you. Should make things a little bit easier from right out of the box. As far as light, that's the way the industry's going. Lighter's better. Lighter means faster club head speeds. We're all enamored by length. You want more length, you got to have more club head speed. So I'm typically telling beginners, let's put as much loft in there as we can without popping the ball up in the air, and let's get something light in your hand so it's not a drudgery to pull it through the hitting zone.
Yeah, I agree as well. And you know what I often recommend to some of the folks that I've been working with over the years is often we see players pulling out a 9-degree or 10-degree loft, which is fine if for those that are a better hitter. But for your beginning golfers, I agree with that, what you just said, John. I think you can even go up a 12, even to a 15-degree if necessary, depending on the individual, because you want to be able to encourage getting the ball up in the air without having to make a lot of manipulation in the golf swing. And, as you improve, then you can maybe look at getting, a newer piece of equipment with a little bit less loft as you become a little bit more accomplished player. But I agree with that analogy. I think and also too, I think lighter is also better. And I want to talk a little bit about, John, if you wouldn't mind touching on, for the driver, about the shaft. It's not just about the weight of the club, but also the shaft too. A lot of players, a lot of beginners particularly, I think quite often get too stiff of a shaft. What are your thoughts?
I'm not going to disagree with you. From years ago, when I first started learning the fit, it was always about getting the most flexible shaft in your hand possible that you could control. What does that mean? What it basically means is if stiff is too stiff, if it feels like a telephone pole in your hand, you just can't get the club to release and propel the ball where you need to go to a regular. If that's not working, go to a senior. If that's not working, go to a ladies. But those were the only choices 20 years ago. Now you actually have choices within each stiffness. You can go with a heavier gram shaft. The heavier the grams, the more stiff that's going to be within that barrel of shafts, whether it's stiff, regular, senior, ladies. I'm seeing myself tend to fit people more nowadays with 40-gram shafts. They're made very durably. They're built to last, and they're able to make a better swing due to not having excessive weight in the golf club. At the end of the day, everything on that driver is getting lighter, from the head itself being made out of multiple materials, a lot of composite, which frees up some weight, and they're able to change the sweet spot as well as the center of gravity due to that. But when it comes to shaft, the longer it is, in theory, statically, it's going to weigh a little bit more. But you can literally go from, say, a 60-gram shaft to a 50-gram shaft to a 40-gram shaft and see a big difference as you step down in weight as to how much the ball launches in the correct trajectory window, how long that ball stays in the air, which means more length, and actually how the ball lands and gets a little bit more roll. So you have a total distance that's a little bit easier to acquire simply because you have the right shaft in your hand. So the common theory is lighter's better, more flex is better, up until the point where you can't control it.
Yeah, and well said. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because, we so often see players going out, they're looking at what's in their buddy's golf bag, or they're talking to their friends and they're saying, well, this is what I play, or that's what I play. And quite often they don't get fitted properly, number one, but also, they're not maybe getting the right type of club in their hands, and that's something as well, and same with the shaft and so forth, and I think you've explained that very well. Peter, I want to move on to you, and we're going to talk about, and I'm going to sort of have two components to this. We're going to talk about fairway woods and also hybrids. Now, traditionally, years ago when we were sort of building up our clubs in our golf bags, we might have a driver, maybe a 3-wood or even a 5-wood. But today's market, Peter, it's changed a lot with the introduction of hybrid clubs, which even are that much more forgiving than some of our longer fairway wood. Talk about that as well from a beginner standpoint, what they should be looking at and why they should be making the decision, whichever way you go, to best fit their game.
Yeah, if the player is really a rank beginner and they're just looking to really discover whether golf is something they want to do, I really encourage them to have a very minimal bag at first, 4 to 5 clubs, and discover whether this is for them, and guide them in the process of having one of those types of clubs you're mentioning be something they use off the tee, actually. And sometimes people gravitate towards a fairway wood of some kind. And I think the best thing people can do in that beginning stage is ask for help. Ask for help determining, what is what can really agree with me. And if you go to someone like John or Paul or myself, generally speaking, there's clubs for you to try and see whether maybe a hybrid or a fairway would be good to have as one of those 4, 5, or 6 clubs to start your bag, and really discover how to play golf.
Yeah, I think one of the issues that, well said, by the way, Peter, I think one of the issues that a lot of beginning golfers have when making the right selection is, not considering having a hybrid. For instance, years ago, we started to whittle away the 2-iron, even the 3-iron, and even the 4-iron for a lot of people, just because they were more difficult for a lot of our amateur golfers to hit. But now a lot of people are getting rid of even the 5 and even the 6-iron and replacing them with hybrids. And I think there's a couple of benefits. Obviously, the hybrid clubs are easier to hit for most people and are still able to help a lot of our golfers out there, especially our newer golfers, to get that ball airborne without sacrificing too much distance. So there's a lot of benefits.
Ted, the beginners I really work with feel very overwhelmed with having even a full complement of clubs in their bag. They don't know what they mean. They don't know how far each club goes, what they're used for. I just try to take a more simplistic approach and give them options, have them be comfortable with the clubs they have in the bag, the amount of money they've just invested, and, be confident about what they're using rather than feel pressured into conforming to immediately or investing in something they're not comfortable with. So it's just something that an angle I've taken. And in the beginning, a lot of people feel a little more comfortable, not feeling as though they can go spend, $200 or $300 and have something to play with, rather than feeling pressured into making maybe even a more significant investment than that if they're really just beginning.
Yeah, and this is really why I wanted to have this discussion tonight on the Coach's Corner panel, because, a lot of people are in that category. We're trying to grow the game, and there's so many great things that we can do as golf instructors once we get them out to the facility to help make that a more pleasurable experience. But we also want them, before they even get there, or when they get there and they have questions like this, well, what club should I get? It's very easy for us to steer them into, the pro shop or wherever to get a set of clubs. But we have to keep mindful that if this is somebody that's new to the game, 14 clubs in the bag, that's the maximum, but that's not a written rule that you have to have 14 clubs. You just can't have more than that. So, as you said, Peter, you can maybe start off with 5 clubs, or something along that lines, until you get comfortable with the game. So it's not as big of an investment, and it's not as, overwhelming. The other thing, Peter, before I move to Paul, I want to kind of go back a little bit to what, John was talking about, the shaft and that. I think another component, too, why I agree with what John said about maybe having a lighter shaft and also maybe a more flexible shaft for some of our beginner golfers, is I think it induces a more fluid and swing for the average golfer, especially our beginning golfers out there, because I think sometimes if they get too stiff of a shaft, they're rushing or speeding up the process. And a lot of times I think it's better to have them swing a little bit slower to begin with, so that they're making sure that it's fluid and that they're within balance. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, from a technical standpoint, I'd rather draw some kind of contextual understanding of an experience they've had before. I agree with you. I think it's important to be extremely fluid, but if it's drawing some kind of comparison, some other way they've been athletic, or some way they can relate to what we're showing them. But I mean, in a real sense, that most learning specialists are going to tell you that an action is best learned at the speed in which it's intended to be played or done. So I'm always encouraging people to be at whatever comfortable speed they would be, but lower speeds is generally not an option I go with. It generally can, for most, I've found it to be more difficult for them. But, John just said, I tend to agree with him completely. A lot of times it's a little bit of malpractice by some realtors that, you know, they're assuming certain things, or they're just trying to move inventory, you know, and I feel it, you know, if I have a person coming to me that clearly should have a lighter shaft, but was guided towards a stiff flex, I often get a little sad. So I just always encourage people to go to help and go to someone they trust for sure.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And I guess just to clarify, you know, what I mean by swinging a little bit slower is I think there's sort of been this push for a long time, you know, to generate more club head speed to get more distance, which is great. But I think for a lot of our beginner golfers, I think it's more important to get them to swing within themselves. Obviously, you know, it has to be at their speed because everybody has a different tempo. You know, and I've mentioned this many times on the show. You know, we look at somebody like a Freddie Couples, you know, who has a little bit more slow, fluid-looking swing. Ernie Els is another example. And then on the flip side, you've got somebody like a Nick Price who has a much quicker tempo. So if you've got a golfer whose you know, natural rhythm or tempo is more like an Ernie Els, and you try to get them in order to get distance swinging more like a Nick Price, they're not going to swing within balance. So that's really, I guess, the approach that I was taking when I said to slow it down. And certainly, I don't want them to be swinging at a snail's pace because that's going to create a whole different right.
If that's the case, I completely agree with you.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was referring to. All right,
okay.
Paul. We're going to go on to irons a little bit, and there's a big variety. We're not looking for specific brands or things like that, but you know, for our beginning golfers, there's a lot of game improvement irons out there. When you've got a beginning golfer coming in, and you know they're just, you know, fresh off the canvas, so to speak, we want to make sure that they're playing with a club that's going to give them the maximum forgiveness. So what's sort of your thought process on that? What should they be looking for with the style of club head? I mean, we always talk about, you know, it wants to look good to the eye and that, but a lot of times for, you know, our early golfers, sometimes what looks good to their eye may not be the best club for them at that time. Now, down the road, they may want to make changes. What are your thoughts there, and what do you try to recommend or look for when helping maybe some of the new beginner golfers make selections for their irons? What are some things that come up to your thoughts?
Well, I definitely agree with Peter's approach in terms of keeping the bag minimal. So a bag that has maybe like high lofted driver, like John mentioned. Right. There are club companies that are, you know, coming out with 44.5-inch drivers now, which is like, I think a great thing. And you know, that we're kind of regaining some you know, rational thought when it comes to the length of that club, because it makes it so much easier to hit it in the middle of the face. And so, you know, try to encourage people more in the direction of a high lofted, shorter driver, something like that, a hybrid, along the lines of like a 5 or even a 6 hybrid, depending on the person, an 8-iron, a sand wedge, and a putter, or, you know, something along those lines, because when you're developing your golf game, you're not really hitting it consistently or generating enough club head speed to take advantage of, you know, an 8-iron set of clubs with a variety of different lofts. That's the whole purpose of having a set of clubs like that, is that if you're, you know, hitting the center of the club face consistently and creating kind of a certain amount of club head speed, you're going to get a different result. But when you're learning how to swing a golf club, that really, you know, a lot of beginners, a lot of entry-level golfers are basically hitting all of their clubs or 4 or 5 of their irons essentially the same distance. So we're trying to just give them a set of clubs that they can advance the golf ball with and be out on the golf course and kind of get some context in terms of what they're learning and what they're getting during lessons. And in terms of the club head, I think, a lot of people have kind of preferences in terms of aesthetics, but when you hit a good shot and you can feel the difference between, consistently easier versus sometimes very punishing, that makes the decision pretty easy, So U.S. Kids actually makes a great product for ladies, the Ladylike clubs, and so I've encouraged a lot of people in the direction of those, and Cobra is doing a great job with ultralight clubs, and lightweight shafts and shorter length drivers these days. And I think the one length, phenomenon has some merit too, actually, because now we're seeing one length, single length hybrids that actually will allow a golfer to develop basically a consistent posture and still hit the ball different distances eventually. So, I don't know. That was a complicated answer, but basically something that helps them. That helps them.
Right. No, that was well said. I think you definitely covered all the bases there. I think really what I want to sort of expose tonight with this first part of the discussion is that there are a lot of choices out there, and it can be very confusing for a lot of our club golfers, and especially our beginning golfers that want to get out there, they want to come to the game. And I think the more, it was different, 20, 30 years ago, it was a different breed of golfer. But now in today's society, there's a lot of, people that want to get into the game that have never been exposed. Maybe their parents didn't play golf, so they didn't play golf when they were a little bit younger or weren't introduced at a very early age. And as a result, now, they want to take up the game. They don't really know where to start. There's a lot of great, game improvement clubs out there of all different shapes and sizes and club heads and so forth. And I think that people really need to, information. I'll step back for a second. When we go to the PGA merchandising show, for those that go down there, we see a lot of this new technology, and we see a lot of great marketing and promotion of these clubs. But the average golfer really doesn't understand the differences between a blade and a cavity back. They don't really understand the differences. So, we can talk about, larger sweet spot, and we can talk about, thinner top line and a wider sole and things like that. But a lot of our average golfers out there, and especially our beginning golfers, they haven't got a clue what we're talking about. So a lot of times I think there has to be an education process. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a few moments. But I think it's very, very important, if we want to truly grow the game and get new people into golf, that we have to approach it a little bit differently. And as I think, Peter, you had said earlier, unfortunately, what ends up happening is if there's a little bit of, inventory still on hand, that a lot of times people get steered into there in order to get rid of it. And that's not always the best thing, because, you don't want to fit somebody with a set of clubs that's really not appropriately fitted for that particular person's game or approach. And more often than not, what happens is, they've spent a small fortune, let's say, in some cases, and are not really playing with the equipment that would best suit their abilities at that time. So, that's a thing that we have to be careful of as well. I just want to make a quick note here. We're going to try and move forward here, and hopefully he'll be able to join us again. I think John's having a little bit of a technical issue on his side. His call got dropped, and he's having some difficulty calling back in. So when he joins us, we'll bring him on board again. But in the meantime, we got to keep things moving. So, Peter, I'm going to jump back to you, and we're going to move into the sort of the next phase, if you will, and that is golf lessons for beginners. Where should beginners start? What's the best start for a beginner?
Ask people. Ask your friends. ask your friends that play golf and ask them to recommend someone to go see and talk to that person and get a sense of, what's comfortable for you to start. What's the comfortable time commitment? What's the comfortable monetary investment? And go from there. I mean, it's the best thing to do is ask for help. And because it can be a lot. You can go online. You can Google search, golf lessons for beginners. And you can get lost in that forest very quickly because there's a number of options that you're just not sure about. So just like anything else that you do, you're asking for a good hairstylist to go to or a good barber or someone to work on your house or anything that you need help with that you're really unsure about. You're going to ask your friends and, start there first and then, have a conversation with the person they recommend and hopefully they're, a person that is, genuine and wants to help you.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, what about once you've done that step and now you've maybe found somebody that you're interested in, from the teacher professional's standpoint, there's sort of an assessment process. Talk a little bit about that. What a new beginner should expect once they've selected the teacher or coach that they want to work with or commit to some lessons. At that point, the instructor is going to sort of put them through an assessment to gauge where they are, and if they're a beginner, obviously they know they're starting from ground zero. But what should be typically a new person or a new beginning golfer's experience when they first meet with their instructor? What should they expect from that first meeting?
It's going to depend for sure, and I can just tell you what I do with beginners is I want to talk and get to know them as much as possible, just as a person first. Get to know, what their past experiences are, what kind of anything they've done, whether it be sports or hobbies or just because it gives me a better knowledge of who that person is, how they can relate to learning how to play golf. I don't have this very formal evaluation process other than, your very standard TPI physical evaluation to help me understand them better. But that's the extent of it for me personally. If a person that is just beginning and, hopefully they're going to look for something similar to that where, hopefully not getting put through the same kind of shot evaluation process that a regular golfer would. I would use that as if they're a beginner golfer and they're going to someone new or someone for the first time and they're getting put through your standard evaluation that every other regular golfer gets through, I would caution them as a red flag. But for me in particular, it's absolutely about getting to know them as the person, furnishing them with some clubs that we have for them so that they don't feel pressure to need to borrow clubs or feel like they need to go into someone's basement or whatever. That's just how I approach it, and I think that's the best way I can explain it.
Right. No, well said. All right, guys, I'm going to try something very quickly here. As I said, John's been having some problems in his area. Not sure if it's the cell area or not, so I'm going to try and see if I can connect him here. So we'll see if we can get him on board here.
Sorry I missed your call. Please leave a message, and I'll return your call at my first.
No. it went to his voicemail, unfortunately. Well, I apologize for that, but we'll have to continue on without John, and unfortunately, we'll have to get him the next time. Paul, I'm going to move on to you then, and I apologize, John, if you're able to hear us here. We're obviously not going to be able to connect tonight, and we'll get you the next time. Paul, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's when it comes to lessons, what's appropriate. Quite often we want to get everybody signed up for a group of lessons, but for beginning golfers, as Peter's pointed out with the equipment and that, we want to be careful that we're not overwhelming a lot of our golfers. And so when it comes to lessons, maybe some of the beginners that you've had, what do you feel for you? And I mean, I know we can't generalize this, but from your experience, what's appropriate to start somebody off with a clean slate?
I think it really depends on what they want from the game and what they're looking for when they come to the golf course, and what their lifestyle is, what their work demands are. We have to make golf fit for people and not try to fit them into a kind of a rigid framework for the game or learning it in a certain way. So I've had beginners who have started pretty intermittent private lessons, maybe across a month or more, and just came for some information. We got to know each other. We got clubs, gave them some recommendations for equipment, and then and how to start swinging the club and how to start putting, and then they go off and they do a little bit of experimenting and they play with a couple of friends and have an enjoyable experience, and then they're back and they want to keep on working on things and advancing. So I really try not to push lesson series necessarily on brand new golfers. I just want them to have an enjoyable time with me at the golf course, in nature, kind of discovering what golf is about. And then if we can, set the hook, so to speak, then we can try to get them into some more organized programs, and that's when they, will hopefully start spending a little bit more time at the golf course and be a little bit more regular, and then their skills will develop and their enthusiasm will develop. So I don't take a strict approach when it comes to any particular set of lessons or program, and I think that golf it's time consuming and resource intensive as it is, so we have to try to make it work for people.
Yeah, well said. And I agree with that. I think obviously we have to treat everybody different, and each individual might have different needs or wants or desires, so we have to try to build a program around them, and it may be just something that they may be testing the waters and don't want to really make a long-term commitment at this point. So sometimes it's just a matter of introducing them to the game. And I think, again, just to sort of reemphasize what Peter was talking about, is we got to be careful that we don't overwhelm them right from the get-go to the point where we kind of scare them off. And I think sometimes with a lot of information that's out there right now, again, as you have mentioned before, Peter and Paul, I'm sure on the show, everybody's going online. There's a ton of information. Everybody's, acting as a golf guru these days and chiming in for their 2 cents. And the problem with that is there's a lot of misinformation. There's certainly some good information out there, but there's a lot of misinformation. And for our new golfers out there, the worst thing that they can do is to fall into that trap where they're seeking advice from 20 or 30 different locations and not really knowing if the people that they're getting the information from are even remotely qualified. Just because you advertise that, you're the next latest, greatest thing out there doesn't mean necessarily so. And, a lot of people get that information and they go out and they try it out on the golf course or the practice range. and it doesn't work, and they get more frustrated, more disgruntled, and ultimately, get left with a sort of a sour taste in their mouth, and ultimately don't want to move forward. So we have to be careful of that. And guys, I want you to each sort of comment on this, and Peter, I'm going to go back to you. And again, I realize it's sort of a variable here, but practice sessions. We want them to get out there. We want them to practice when we are working with them. But let's be realistic in how we approach this. How much time should a new golfer realistically be willing to invest before they're going to start to see some noticeable results?
I encourage, just all golfers and, beginners especially, I want 20 minutes of just really focused practice. And I'm always happy to give them, just send them an email of 3 or 4 options of a practice program for them to just execute. That's going to be very focused, be very, very, have them switching club every time, and give them, I encourage them to give themselves benchmarks. And a lot of it's point-based, and not to get wrapped up in the fact of those points being nothing more than very personal goals to just do better next time. But any more than half an hour, you end up reaching a point of diminishing return, and the quality of the reps, the fatigue factor definitely sets in. And I'm always encouraging them to, I tell them the environment and the way they can practice with, not by dumping out the balls right next to the hitting area, keeping the balls back, 10 feet or so away from where they're hitting, just have one ball at a time at their hitting area. Make the reps count. Just don't have it in a kind of automatic hit and rake situation. This is all stuff that I just like to explain to them and educate them on, and and give them the resources they need to, spend 20 minutes 2 or 3 times a week, maybe when they have time. If not, I'm really encouraging them to go play, to spend an hour playing. If you have that hour, play 3 holes. And I give them a game to play that's scaled. It's scaling golf on to be, on the easiest side of playing the game. It has them picking up the ball a lot and, really practicing a form of practicing on the golf course. So it's an hour on the golf course or 20 minutes at the range or practice area is great.
Yeah. And that's a great way to approach it too. I mean, a lot of times we see people get out on the practice tee or the range, and they're spending an hour or so, and fatigue starts to set in. I mean, I don't care how good a shape you're in. You've got to, and also even boredom. I mean, as much as I love hitting golf balls and that, I know after a certain period of time it just gets to be a little bit too much, and I need to get away from that. And I think in this day and age, certainly depending on the level of play you want to accomplish, you certainly have to be mindful of that. Paul, I want to ask you in a slightly different way. Peter's very eloquently pointed out a time frame, what he feels is comfortable, that he likes to recommend as far as how much time that we want them out there practicing. But a lot of people will ask me the question. They'll say, well, okay, I'm going to sign up for some lessons here, or I'm going to get into a coaching program. How long, realistically, am I going to have to be working with you to see some results? And I know, again, it's going to vary from coach to coach and teacher professional. But in a realistic sense, so that people understand what they're dealing with, how much time on average do you feel that a beginning golfer is going to be able to noticeably see some improvement if they're applying the techniques and the information that we're giving them, should they start to see some improvement?
I think it depends a lot on the person's athletic background and just their personal history, and any injuries they have. Things like that are going to have an effect on or an impact on how they move and how they swing a golf club. But I think sometimes it can be pretty quick, and it just it depends a lot on the individual. Sometimes I think it's just a matter of days or a couple of weeks, and if the person's putting in time in between lessons and they have a passion for it, then they'll see some change pretty quickly, and hopefully they'll start to feel what it's like to hit a solid golf shot, and they'll be off to the races. It's a lot of it's about the amount of time that you spend on a repetitive kind of basis, not chunks, big blocks of time. I think Peter's absolutely right. Excuse me, about not spending more than 20 or 30 minutes working on a particular skill, whether that's full swing or short game, chipping or putting. But if you were to do the 20 minutes every day, and you're dealing with some good information, and you have a history of throwing or hitting a forehand in tennis or something that resembles the golf swing, you should see some change pretty quickly, and you should start to feel it. So it's, I think, a direct relationship to the amount of time and the regularity of the practice. Right.
And I agree with that as well. I think that, one of the biggest problems that I think a lot of golfers put on themselves is unrealistic expectations. And what I mean by that is, they'll sign up for, let's say, a block of 5 lessons, and they might be a couple of weeks apart. And more often than not, they won't get out and play. They might get out and practice once or twice in that 2-week period. And by the time the next lesson comes, they've forgotten what was taught the first lesson, or have, maybe a slightly different version of what they were taught. And because they haven't really put it into practice, they haven't even gone out and played around. And so you're almost starting from that ground zero again, come lesson number 2. And, I think this is the frustration that happens both for the student and for the golf professional, because obviously, we want them to improve. We want them to get excited about the game. But more often than not, because of time restraints and maybe other obligations, they're not able to put in the time, as Peter suggested, or Paul, as you did, within the parameters of the lesson block that they're working with. And I've seen that, in my own situation with some of the corporate people that I work with. They'll say, well, I want to do a tune-up this year, and I'll say, great, let's get out there. And I'll ask them the next time they show up, and, well, I was delayed in meetings a lot, and I just didn't get out there, and they wonder why they're not seeing an improvement. So that's an issue as well. I think that we have to make sure early on when we speak with the students what their level of commitment is, and what they honestly expect to see, what kinds of results they expect to see, and whether or not we're sort of on the same page. What are your thoughts there, Peter, and then Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I see that a lot. But a lot of what I do, what you want to do with people, and is just to be there to help, be a resource. And if that's a constraint, then you need to, as their coach, appreciate that fact and tailor what you're doing to accommodate what their work demands, their family demands are, and what you're going to address with that particular person is going to be very different than what you're going to talk about with someone that's going to have a different time availability, we'll say, or at that point, if they're a regular golfer and you're more talking about the beginner, I don't know if a beginner is going to come to you unless they're really looking. I mean, most commonly I've seen is someone in a corporate setting, like you just said, where they need to be able to play just a respectable game of golf. And, I'm going right towards contact first, just enabling them to make very good contact. And if that comes with some direction control, fabulous. If not, it's it's a different conversation to have. And if they have the time to have it, I'm happy to have that conversation. But the biggest thing you can work on first and foremost in that situation for a beginner golfer or someone who might be a regular golfer that just has not just really big time constraints and demands is definitely right to quality of contact.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right, Peter. I think too that initial and this is why I pointed it out earlier and wanted you guys to talk about this is the initial contact and conversations that we have. I think that something that as golf professionals I think that we need to recognize is we are dealing with a much different market than what we were, say, 20 or 30 years ago in the golf industry. Time restrictions are much more rigid than what they were at that time. And the types of golfers that we're getting coming out now are even different. Their personalities are different. So I think really what I want people to take away from both sides of this, from the player's side or the beginning golfer side, and the coaches out there that might be tuning in tonight, is we have to be willing to adapt to the marketplace. And I think if we're unwilling and unable to do that, then we're not really doing the industry justice or service, because it is a changing. It's like any other market. It's a constantly ever-changing market. And it's not just a matter of being updated on the latest and greatest, instructional techniques, but also, or even marketing techniques, but it's understanding the human behavior. Peter, you kind of alluded to this earlier, is, you wanted to get to know the individuals that you're dealing with. And it's about building relationships. It's about building and developing a relationship with the golfer and understanding what their wants, needs, and desires are. And I think as golf instructors, the way of just sort of the standard lesson programs that we've all sort of been brought up on, certainly some that are in my age category anyways, is entirely different. And it's more important now that we adapt to an ever-changing market. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see declines in certain areas of the golf market. The stats don't lie. So, an interesting discussion. I think it's one that, can have a lot of parameters to it. But I just wanted to sort of, brush across some of the general things that I think that as a new golfer out there that might be listening, that they should at least consider at the very most. And as always, guys, you did a great job. Let me just say, for those that are maybe just tuning in part way through this conversation, we were talking a little bit about, some ideas and thoughts from some great professionals here. For that new golfer out there that's maybe thinking about dipping their toe in the sand, if you will, or in the water and trying, golf out for the first time. If you're just joining us now, you want to listen to the broadcast a little bit later on and listen to the early part, and hopefully we'll give you some good information. I also just want to make a quick side note and extend apologies on behalf of my good friend John Hughes. Unfortunately, down in Orlando, he was having some network issues with his cell service and phone service, so he wasn't able to call back in, and we did try to reach out to him, and unfortunately, because of that, we weren't able to connect. So he extends his apologies and guarantees that he will be fresh and ready next time on the Coach's Corner panel when he's scheduled. But Paul and Peter, thank you for doing a fantastic job tonight and stepping up and filling in for John as well. Peter, before we go off this segment of the show, if you want to just let the listeners know that maybe they want to take that first little step in learning to play golf, how they can go about reaching you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ted and Paul. It's always great, spending time with you on the phone, and let's talk after this. But if people want to reach out to me, I'm really proud to be at Taconic Golf Club, which is right on the campus of Williams College in Williamstown, Massachusetts. It's quite literally the most northwestern corner of the state of Massachusetts, but it is beautiful and an incredible place. They can find me at gogolfcoach.com, and also mainly on Instagram. I'm the most active, and I'm at dailygolf.coach on Instagram. I also have Facebook and Twitter, but I am definitely the most active on Instagram. And thanks for having me on again, Ted. It's definitely always a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate it, and as I say, the whole purpose of the Coach's Corner is really to have that discussion and allow not just the listeners who maybe are looking to get into the game or maybe are have been playing the game for a while. Hopefully we can give them some things to consider, but also for our fellow coaches and teach professionals that are out there. Sometimes we need a little bit of a refresher. We need to get some of this information and rethink our approach. As I said a few moments ago, it's an ever-changing industry, and we have to make sure that we stay on top of things, not just as far as certifications and things like that, but also an ever-changing market, because the needs and wants and desires of our newer golfers particularly is much different than maybe what we've experienced in the past. So we need to understand and really listen to what it is that they want. They may not want to be the next Tiger Woods or Rory McIlroy or Patrick Reed for that matter. They might just want to go out and have a little bit of fun once in a while. So we need to really listen to that. Paul, what about you? How can the folks that maybe listening to the show tonight want to reach out? Maybe they're thinking of taking up the game, or maybe they've been in the game for a little while and need a quick tune-up to get things sharp and ready for a new season. How can they reach you?
Ted, thanks again so much for having me. And, Peter, it was great to be on with you. And John, too, if you're listening. Sorry we weren't able to finish. But I'm the Director of Instruction at Forest Gate Golf Academy. Forest Gate Country Club is in central New Jersey in Monroe. We've got 36 holes of championship golf, Golf Digest, Best in State Golf Course. And our website is forestgategolfacademy.com. I also have my own website, which is paulcastergolf.com, and I am also on Instagram, like Peter, and my handle is paulcastergolf. And between those, you should be able to find me, and it would be great if anyone listening wanted to come down and visit us at Forest Gate. We've got a great facility, and we'd love to help you.
Well, guys, again, thank you for doing a great job tonight in Coach's Corner, and I know John thanks you as well for filling in for him a little bit as well when you could. Keep up the great work. You guys do a phenomenal job, both here on the Coach's Corner panel and, of course, in your respective communities helping to grow this game. So keep up the great work, and I'll see you next time on the Coach's Corner panel. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, Ted.
Thanks, Ted. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Good night, guys. All right. That was my very special guests on the Coach's Corner panel, Peter Agazarian and, of course, Paul Castor. And, again, extended apologies on behalf of John Hughes from Orlando. Unfortunately, ran into some technical issues on his end and wasn't able to reconnect with the program tonight. But I know John will be ripe and ready to go next time on the Coach's Corner panel, so we look forward to having him join us back. All right, I'm very excited tonight for a couple of reasons. My very special guest, Greg Thorner, is going to be joining me here, and I'll tell you a little bit about him in just a second. But let me just remind the listeners some of the ways that you can tune into the program. Obviously, first and foremost, you want to go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live is the main show link. And every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central, right front and center right there, and you can listen to the show in its entirety during the live broadcast. You can even call into the show if you want to say hello and maybe chat with some of the guests that are on. And to do so, you can call area code 646-716-4667, or you can email me any questions or comments about the show to ted.golftalklive tedoricotedrico@gmail.com. If you're someone that prefers to listen under a different social media platform, here's some other great ways that you can tune into the show as well. You can go to itunes.com, Stitcher.com, and now TuneIn.com, and simply under the podcast section, just type in Golf Talk Live, and that will take you in those respective platforms as well. And as I said earlier, I update on social media all of the shows each and every week, who's going to be on the Coach's Corner panel, and of course who my special guests is going to be. So you can find me on Facebook under my personal name. It's Ted Odorico, and it's Odorico. You can also go to Golf Talk Live blog, that page there, and find it as well on Facebook. Or you can find under LinkedIn under my personal posts under Ted Odorico. Again, go to linkedin.com for those of you that communicate on that social network. And you can also find me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. CEO is in capital letters. And thanks for all of the recent followers as well. Getting some great messages through Twitter as well. All right, I've been trying to get this gentleman to come on the show for a few years, and he's been pretty busy. And we're going to talk a little bit about what he's been up to over the last few years. And his name is Greg Thorner. He's a great golf professional out of the Tampa, Florida area. He's also the owner of Break 30, the improvement movement. Greg, of course, worked for years in Asia for the David Ledbetter Golf Academy, mainly in the Shanghai area. He was named by Asia Golf Times in 2003 as the Asian Golf Instructor of the Year. He started focusing on the short game because, as he says, I absolutely love it. And who doesn't? The short game is always one of the best areas to be practicing and enjoying. He grew up on a course in Michigan that, of course, didn't have a range, so all he could do was really chip and putt at the time. But in his heart, he said teaching the short game was what was most on his heart. But many of his business mentors and professionals said you need to get a niche. But he was more drawn to what his students wanted, and that was to be able to score better. So without further hesitation, let me bring on my very special guest this evening, Greg Thorner.
Hey,
evening, Greg, and
thank
welcome
you, Ted.
to Golf Talk Live.
Hey, thank you, Ted.
How are you doing?
Thank you. Glad to be here. Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Well, Greg, as I sort of alluded to, I've been wanting to have you on the show for a few years now, and we finally made it happen. So I appreciate you giving some time, because I know it's not always easy after a long day of teaching and working at our craft, that sometimes you just want to kick back and relax. But I appreciate you giving of your time, and I know the audience will enjoy it. So I want to start off by talking a little bit about your experience over in Asia. Obviously, it's a much different market than here in the United States. How did that sort of come about? How did you sort of get in over there, and how did you find working with the David Ledbetter Golf Academy?
Excellent. Yeah, well, for me, I just found that one day when I was at the PGA show, I remember looking around, seeing a bunch of golf professionals, and this is not a knock on my fellow professionals, because I enjoy them and I enjoy being a golf professional myself. But I looked around, everybody was dressed in khaki pants, navy blazer, white shirt, and a tie. And you could pick out the golf professionals from the rest of the people walking around pretty easy. And I thought, you know what, when you go to differentiate yourself from other people in this field, you know, what would set you apart? So I kind of started brainstorming and thinking about that, and think about, you know, what would I do that would be a tremendous life experience, you know, that I would someday have the opportunity to share with my 3 children that I have, and, you know, and share with the students, and what would maybe make me a better golf instructor, a better person, and just give myself something different. And I kept racking my brain, and finally it came, you know, working overseas. Well, long story short, you know, I had the opportunity to present itself through the David Ledbetter Golf Academies, and it was actually in China. And of all places, I was like shocked. I was like, China? And it tended to work out. It was in the cards, and off I went.
So what, you know, we've seen a sort of a big surge in recent times, in the last probably better than a decade, of a lot of Asian players coming in, particularly on the LPGA tour, but even on some of the males tours, the PGA and even the senior tour. How is it different in that, or what do you notice differently? Obviously, there's some cultural differences and things like that over in Asia than there is here in the United States. But as far as golfers, newer golfers particularly, is there a difference in how they approach the game to maybe some of the folks that you've worked with over here in the United States?
Yeah, great question. I think the newer golfers, I would like to say like the average golfer, like our typical country club golfer, a guy who golfs 2-3 times a month over there and over here, are very, very, very similar. They approach the game the same. The courses are the same. There's a lot of the same stuff that goes on between here and there. The golfers that we see on TV, the surge, especially like the Korean girls on the LPGA tour, even like you mentioned, some of the male golfers that are now surging there. I think for them, as young kids, they train. It's almost like a little more of survival. I think that for them, my opinion, I watched a lot of kids that would just play golf all day long as a way to feel like they could get out of poverty or get something special in their life, and they tend to do that in anything, whether it be either their special sport in the Olympics, whether it be golf or whatever it may be, but they tend to really excel there.
Yeah, and I think what I've noticed, and I think this is why they have dominated so much, particularly on the LPGA. I mean, you see a much bigger array of Asian golfers on the LPGA tour than I'm sure you do in the men's tour. But I mean, you see a lot of young Asian girls that come onto the tour and literally will dominate their respective positions. I mean, Siri Pak and I mean, Inbee Park, and there's 100. Lydia Ko, exactly. Is playing quite well in this the current tournament right now. But there just seems to be a little different mindset in their work ethic as far as how they approach the game. And I remember a few years ago that was brought up. I think it was on the Golf Channel, and they were talking about that. And again, this is not to criticize some of our U.S. players and that, but I think that there is a different approach to how they. It's less about marketing themselves or branding themselves as opposed to just let's get out there, let's grind it out, let's get a few wins under and worry about the accolades later. Do you have that sort of same feeling as well, or have you noticed that as well, or am I completely wrong?
Yeah. No, I 1,000% agree with you, and that's kind of what I was trying to allude to there, that I think you're spot on there, that it's more of a grind out. And consequently, this is just my own belief after spending years over there, that I don't know whether they're doing more harm or they're doing more good for golf, because sure, there's a lot of people, and not a lot, but there's a small percentage of people that are actually succeeding on these tours. But there's thousands and thousands that are putting 8 hours a day in. They're letting school get neglected. They're letting their friendships get neglected. They're letting everything else with this dream of hoping to make it in golf or even basketball or tennis or whatever their sport may be. And I think they just get so focused. And I always wondered when I was over there, are they missing a lot of the life skills and a lot of the lifetime, things experiences that we get? And I just, have a wonder if it's good or bad.
Yeah, and I remember early, obviously I'm in my early to mid-50s, so I've been around the block for a little bit. But, I can remember watching some of the earlier players come out of Japan and obviously parts of Korea, and there was just an entirely different work discipline. Especially when they come over here, and if they were playing collegiate golf. I mean, obviously they wanted to get into a good university, get a good education, but they wanted to be able to get on a good golf team, ladies golf team for whatever college they were attending. But they were real grinders, and if you look at their career very early on, before they even get to the big stage, you see a lot of them are, All-Americans, meaning that they're, just very accomplished players before they've actually even hit the LPGA Tour. So, I think it's just a different work ethic, and as you say, maybe they're sacrificing in other areas. I don't know. Obviously, I haven't been over there, and you've had a better understanding from your time over there, but obviously it was a great experience. How long were you over there for, Greg?
Pardon me? How long was I over there?
How long were you over there?
About 12 years total.
Wow. So you definitely were well immersed in the culture and had an idea of not just working, but a better understanding of their culture. And I think, as you pointed out early, what a great life experience for you as well to see how somebody else lives.
Yeah, it was tremendous. I loved it, and I did see a lot of it. I agree, Ted.
Fantastic. Now, one of the things that obviously we want to talk about tonight is your Break 30, the improvement movement. How did you come up with the name? And for those that maybe are newer to golf, what are you talking about when you say Break 30? I know what you're talking about, but for the listeners out there, what does Break 30 mean, and what's your analogy of your program?
So basically, there was a company out there, and they were a European company, and they had the terminology Break 30 before I did, and I contacted them. They went out of business. I contacted them and said, hey, I like the name. I'd like to use it. And nobody responded. Finally, I got an email from them back saying, hey, we're out of business. If you want to use it, we're done. Go ahead. So I'm like, hey, fantastic.
Right.
Break 30 to me it's kind of like a symbol of getting below 29 putts per round. And with focusing on short game, I felt like it was a good benchmark that people could have as a goal. I'm not sure it's necessarily the best statistical statistic to look at, but it's just kind of it's a catchy name. It's a way for people to remember me. It's a way for somebody to have a simple goal. You can always keep your score and putts in the scorecard. And if you're wedging it well and you're putting it well, I think even the average person has the ability to get below 30 putts per round, which is what most tour players have in a good round of golf.
Right. And unfortunately, a lot of our regular golfers out there focus at the other end of the game. They're all about wanting to hit great drives, and certainly we want to keep it in the short grass. But at the same time, they spend more time on the range trying to perfect their driver and little time on the putting green, working on an area that is crucial. I mean, if you look at the stats of most of the top tour players, certainly they're fairly accomplished drivers of the ball, but their prowess is more at the short game, and particularly on the putting surface. The guys that are winning in week in, week out, and obviously that's a niche that you really wanted to create. So, Greg, let me ask you this, because in the opening information that I read in your bio, you talk about how you really wanted to focus on the short game. It's not the most, it's not always the most fun for a lot of people out there. As I said, they want to stripe at 250 plus yards with their driver. What do you do to try to encourage your students to understand that it's the short game that's going to reduce their score? How do you sell that to them?
Well, I think that what really started me is, I'll start real quick and I'll tell you a short story about how they sold it to me originally and really got me pursuing what I love the most. Is when I worked for David Ledbetter and we had these golf schools, I remember we'd come in, we'd get players to work on it, and we'd work on their full swing a ton, and we'd spend about an hour on the short game. And then they would go out and play on their own. The next day they would report back to us. And the common theme was, like, oh, man, I love working on my full swing. I didn't hit it good. I was shooting 90 when I got here. Last night when I played, I shot 102, but, I feel like if I work on it, I'm on the right path. But guess what? I chipped in once. Yeah. Or I chipped in twice. The short game stuff was amazing. I got it right away. And I just got thinking about that, and I thought, well, who wants to get worse before they get better? And I find this a lot in golf instruction. As you start to change the full swing, as you start to do something different, it feels uncomfortable. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it feels uncomfortable. And they tend to get worse. And I didn't really want that in my golf schools. When I decided to leave Ledbetter and do my own golf school, I didn't really want people to get worse before they get better. And I thought, in the short game, no one ever got worse before they got better. They immediately started getting better right from the start. So that's kind of where it came from. At the start, is they dictated to me with saying how much better they got instantly. And then it allowed me to breach out and put a 100% money back guarantee on it, saying, look, I want to be the only golf school that I've ever found that gives a 100% money back guarantee. As a matter of fact, I get a little deposit from people up front, but they don't pay for the school until the end of the school after I can talk to them and say, hey, look, did we meet your expectations? Did we exceed your expectations? If we did, then we'll charge you. If we didn't, where did we fail? Did you improve? And as long as they say yes to those answers, they feel like they have a plan, they improved, then we charge their credit card then.
Yeah, and that's a great way. And I wanted to, I was going to ask you that anyways, but that's a great point because, a lot of times it's also an incentive for the instructor to make sure that the information that they're giving them is also being received. I mean, it's very easy once, as you say, you swipe the credit card, you've got their money now, and a lot of times, things fall by the wayside. This is a great way for you to really make sure you're doing the very best that you can. And obviously there's going to be some situations where people are just not, learning as much as they should, and that's no reflection on you, but this is a great way to give them an incentive to say, hey, you know what, they're actually interested in making sure that I'm successful in this process, and it's not just all about signing me up for some lessons and so on and so forth. And that's a great sales approach as well. Go ahead.
And Ted, let me just kind of jump in right there, because what I can do with that statement that you just made right there ties right back into the number one thing I learned when I came home from Asia was when I was a golf instructor before I went over there to Butler National Chicago, and I was amazed at how many times I gave lessons, and I would talk to people and say, hey, do you understand this, or do you get it? Do you like it? And I try to look for feedback, and they kind of have a little bit of a blank stare in their face, and they'd be shaking their head yes, and they'd say, yeah, I get it, I understand it. But because of me just taking them at their word and not really understanding how to read them as well, I believed them and moved on. When I went to Asia, I didn't have the ability to speak Chinese to them when I first got there. Well, long story short, I could tell on their face going through my translator that, hey, this guy doesn't get it. He doesn't understand. He may shake his head yes. I don't care what my translator tells me. I can read and tell you he's not getting it right now. So I think that one of the strengths to my golf instruction is be able to read people and understand if they do get it or if they don't get it now. So that kind of ties right back into what you were saying there.
Right. And communication's a big thing. And as I was saying earlier on the panel discussion tonight, it's about building relationships with people. It's not just about signing somebody up for golf lessons. It's about building and developing a relationship. And when you build a level of trust with your students, that they feel confident that what you're showing them is going to help improve their game long term, then they're going to continue to come back. But it's important as an instructor that we make sure that they understand what it is we're explaining. One of the criticisms I have of the golf industry today, and I'm sure you may or may not agree, is with all of the technology that's out there, as exciting, as interesting as it is, Greg, the problem is it's way over the head of most students. And the trap that some teachers have gotten into is it's all about impressing people with the numbers and not really finding out if their students truly understand what it is they're being taught, because the instructors are caught up in the numbers as well. And again, most people don't want to feel like they're dumb or stupid, so they're going to agree and say, oh yeah, I understand what you're talking about, but in reality they don't realize what it is you're trying to explain to them. So this is where communication and understanding and being able to read your student becomes critical, and obviously this is something that you've worked on for over several decades in your instruction. Something that really stood out to me, Greg, about your program was this: is many of the instructors, of course, we're both in Florida. You're down in Tampa, and I'm up here in just outside of Destin in Panama City Beach, Florida. So we have the luxury of playing in some pretty warm climates. A lot of golf instructors will come down to Florida for part of the season and play up in the Northeast, for another part, maybe because that's where they typically reside. But you actually visit 30 cities a year and to run your 2-day learning experiences. Tell us a little bit about that. What was the reasoning behind sort of taking it on the road, if you will, and give us an idea of where you're traveling to? Yeah,
sure. So I guess it kind of started out with I really enjoyed the golf school format. That's what I was trained in when I worked for Ledbetter. That's what the 2 and 3 day learning experiences. What I felt that people need to really get that message across. And I kind of felt at this time that the 1 hour lesson model was broke. that people weren't really getting to reaching their full potential. It was just my opinion. I'm not saying, that it doesn't work for some, but in my opinion, I like getting with people for a couple of days to work this out. And what I found was it was a little bit pricey. When you ask people to travel down and then the cost of the school itself and the hotels and the meals and stuff like that. And when I started learning things in the business side, not just the golf side of things, they said, okay, well, you need to niche down. You need to differentiate yourself. And, that went right back to the PGA show. I talked about all the guys with the khaki pants and the navy blue blazers. I need to differentiate myself. So I thought, I'll do short game. Okay, and short game work was fantastic because my heart was in it and I loved it. But when I found that, that people weren't as into the short game as I was, so I needed to kind of even niche it down even more. And then I decided, okay, to cut down those expenses, it's a lot cheaper for one person, for me to say go to Louisville, Kentucky, than it is for someone from Louisville, Kentucky or 4 people from Louisville, Kentucky to travel down here to Tampa. So I just thought, and it would be a unique experience for me to go to them. They could sleep in their own bed at night. They could still tuck their kids in or make the kids, t-ball game or something at night or little league game or soccer game. And it just, I tried a couple of schools. I did one down in Palm Beach just to try see if it would work. I had some members from Belmont Country Club just to use it as a little blueprint to try it. I tried it, got tremendous feedback from it, and it worked. And then I tried throwing some things out on Twitter saying, hey, would it be better for you to go to a school, or would it be better if the school came to you? And overwhelmingly, the response was, hey, if you could come to my town, that would be outstanding. Save me, I don't have to take time off work, things like that. And it was just a plethora of reasons why it was better for me to go to them. And that's how it came about.
And that's really a great idea, Greg. I commend you for that because, really when you think about that, again, especially in today's market, as I was alluding to earlier in the program on Coach's Corner panel, a lot of people are under time restraints to take time off, not only the 2 days to be involved in the school, but then they've got to add travel time on there as well. So now maybe you're looking at 3 or 4 days or 5 days, depending on where they're coming from, and then add those nights in a hotel room on top of, what you're charging for the school. That's a lot for a lot of people today. And for you to have to come up and stay in and have, 3 or 4 or 5 students in one school setting is very economical for you to do and to set up. So I like the way you've done that. Now, you were telling me the other morning on the phone, you've been doing it 30 cities. You're actually expanding that now. You correct me if I'm wrong. You're going to 35 now?
Well, not yet. I think that's going to be the plan going forward. I've had people reach out to me saying, hey, would you be interested in coming to this city? Would you be interested in coming to this city? And because of the interest that other people have, then the plan is for maybe 2019 to get to that, but not right yet. That will be it in the future. Thank you.
But that's fantastic. And obviously, once you start that initiative, which you have done now, and 30 cities is a great accomplishment to be able to do that. The other thing that I want to get you to share a little bit about, Greg, is you talk about teaching a system. Talk a little bit about that and some of the things that you focus on that maybe some of the others don't focus on.
Sure. I think that the biggest thing when I started teaching short games, I asked people, what club are you using here? And the biggest thing was is they said, oh, well, if I got plenty of green to work with, the rule of thumb is you do the bump and run. If the pin's tucked and I got to go over a bunker, I got to have to go over even a bush or something, well, then I take the lob wedge out and I hit the 60. And I just felt like there was so much more to it than that. Nobody ever talked about, well, what was my lie? Did I have access to the back of the ball? Was it rough? Was it hard pan? Not just where the flagstick was in the green, but what's even between me and the green? Is there room to kind of bump and run it or there and stuff? So I started coming up with what I would call my own system as to what club that I would select. Well, then it kind of moved into 5 basic shots that I teach around the green. So this is my short game system that I created. The 5 shots that we hit around the green. We have and I can get into each shot here in a minute. I'll be glad to. But we have these 5 shots.
Sure.
But the thing that separates us, at Break 30, what I do is I try to focus as much on the how, which every golf instructor does, but I try to really focus as much on the when and why we hit each shot. I think that's just as important. I feel like when I talk to students and when I talk to golfers and when I talk to people who aren't even in my class and just talk to golfers, you ask them, well, why are you hitting that? Nobody really has a concrete answer. They don't know what it is. So at my school, what we do is we really find out, okay, yeah, you're going to learn the how. That's pretty easy. We'll have some ability to follow up. We'll have videos. You can have YouTube videos to learn it. You can have, you'll hear this information in the seminar. We will watch you hit shots and correct you there and stuff because we've got 2 days together. But we're going to spend a lot of time, okay, why do you hit the shot? Why did you pick that club? Why did you select which one of these 5 shots we did? And I find that when people have a system and they have a thought process to picking each shot and then each club in that system, that they tend to make better strokes, or the better strokes, better swings, better scores.
Yeah, and what I like about that, Greg, is this. You're exactly right. As golf instructors, we can show our students how to hit the shot, but more often than not, we also have to be able to teach our students how to play, and that's where the when and the why come in. Because, there are different situations. As you said, there's different conditions. There's lie conditions. It's not just, as you said, it's not just, hitting a bump and run or lobbing it over a bunker or some other inanimate object. But there's certain times when certain shots are appropriate. And you'd be surprised at how many students out there, and I think this adds to the level of frustration for a lot of golfers, is they understand how to hit the shots, but they don't always know when it's appropriate to hit that specific shot. You're exactly right. And the pros will even tell you this on tour. They said, I don't know how many times they've played in a Pro-Am event, and they'll see everybody jumping for their lob wedge because they see the pro hitting it on TV. So they figure every time I get around the green, that's what I've got to hit. I got to get out my 60-degree lob wedge. And, they're out there lofting it way up in the air when maybe they should be hitting a different shot. So I like the fact that you're teaching a system that's giving them some options and some other things to consider, and then explaining to them why they want to hit that shot in this particular situation, so that they're adding to their repertoire. And I like that how you've set that up, and that's definitely something that I think a lot of instructors need to really start focusing a little bit more on. One of the other things, too, that sort of stood out to – yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, thanks. I appreciate the compliments there because it's something that I truly believe in. We work hard on it, and we've had, tremendous success. Every person that I have taught the short game to, if you teach them the how, well, they get the how. But you teach them the when and why, and now not only do they get it, but they get it with confidence, and they're approaching each shot with confidence, and they're approaching each shot with a plan rather than just stepping up there, work on the technical side of it. And I think that that's key for us in really feeling like we can move forward with everybody's game, not just a few people's game, but everybody's game we can show improvement to.
Yeah, and this is something, you're exactly right, Greg. This is something that, unfortunately, I think the industry as a whole has really fallen short. There's been so much effort on the technique and getting the pitch perfect swing and getting everybody's, alignment, exactly the same. And the truth of the matter is we're all uniquely different. My tempo and timing might be different than yours and somebody else. And I think that unfortunately the industry for a long time has tried to sort of pigeonhole everybody into the same, methodology, if you will, at times, and even the same swing styles. And it's added a lot of frustration. But the one area that really wasn't explained as well as it could be is what you're talking about here, and that is the when and the why. The how, I think we've got that down to a science now, but the when and the why, that's where a lot of golfers struggle on the golf course, and this is why the handicaps, I believe, the handicaps have not come down in a long time. So I'm sure you're working very diligently and hard on helping that happen with your golfers. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Something else, Greg, that was I think paramount. My background was sales, and this was something that I incorporated. Obviously, not exactly as what we're going to talk about here in a second, but was the follow-up. And I like the fact that, you don't just go to these schools and, we're working for a couple of days and then that's it until the next time they want to have a school or do something else. You actually have a great follow-up program. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think my follow-up program developed from my days working at a private club in Boston called Belmont Country Club when I was a teaching pro there, is that I would catch people, they'd see me in the locker room, they'd see me after a lesson or two or even a week later, and they'd start asking questions, go, man, I'm so glad I ran into you. I need to ask you 2 quick questions, and boom, boom, and they'd rattle them off. So they'd ask me about their grip or about, which even club selection, a little bit more of the why even there and stuff. So I thought, you know what, when I get these people into a golf school, I'm sure they have these same questions because I couldn't walk through the clubhouse at Belmont Country Club without someone asking me a question about a lesson they had even 3 weeks ago. So I kind of started racking my brain, and I came up with the idea with having the ability to reach out to me directly. If you come to me and you trust me enough with your golf game, because let's face it, it's a trust factor. You're going to go to this guy and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to do what you say. I'm going to change my swing around. I'm going to change my short game. I'm going to change my thought process, and I'm trusting that you're going to put me down the right path, because if you don't, I'm going to have a miserable summer. So if you trust me enough for that, I should have enough trust in you, that okay, we're going to work on this together, and follow up with me. Talk to me. If you start getting just a little bit off, I can probably, do some things over the phone or a Skype lesson or video your phone. Have a friend video your swing on your phone and send it to me, and let's fix this before it gets too bad, where it ruins your summer. And so what I created was a 290 program. So the 2 is the 2-day golf school. The 90 is 90 days of follow-up. So you have 90 days to follow up with me directly, whether it be a Skype, a Facebook Live. Maybe we even set up a private group where just you and I join it, and you post some videos in there, and I go and critique them, send them back, where we're the only 2 that see this Facebook group. Skype call, or even just a basic, good old-fashioned phone call, and we just talk about it and see if I can't help you through that. But the whole point of it is I want you to feel like if you come to my golf school and you invest the money and the time and the commitment to make it better, that we're going to not let little things derail this process, even 90 days down the road, where too many golf schools I find, okay, well, you spent your 2 or 3 days there, you went to the school, you saw them, well, now you're on your own. Now what do? You get back home, you've got some questions, if you're back in Knoxville, Tennessee, and Greg's down in Tampa, well, now I go to another instructor, well, he's going to have a whole different system, or he could possibly have a different system, or whatever the case may be. So I want you to be able to reach back out to me. So I give them 90 days of free follow-up, any way, shape, or form we can come up with. If I haven't thought of it through the ways I mentioned and you can think of a different one, I'm in. We'll do that too. Anything I can do to help you out and play better golf. So that's my 290 program.
Yeah, and that's crucial because, as I was alluding to earlier in the program tonight, again, communication with students is paramount, especially in today's market. There's no excuse. With all of the technology out there, there's a lot of ways for you to be able to communicate. Many of the ones that you've just suggested are very common nowadays for people to be able to communicate. So, I think it's great because you're right. There's nothing worse than spending some money going to a 2 or 3 day golf school, and you have a great time and you learn a lot, but then you come back and a month has gone by and maybe you've got some questions. You're absorbing a lot of information perhaps in those 2 or 3 days, and sometimes you just need a little bit of a cooling down period to absorb that information and maybe get out and try it a few times, and maybe a quick call with you or a video analysis from you can shed the light on some areas that they're still a little bit confused about, without having to go through the 2 or 3 day school again. They just want to be able to do that. So I like that outreach program that essentially is what you're offering to those that are involved in the schools. I think it's fantastic.
Thanks. Once again, it was all something to take the average golfer to get the fear out of trusting someone with their golf game, trusting with their golf lessons. You know what I mean? So it's something that we say, okay, look, we're going to do everything we can to help you play better golf, to help you enjoy your game more, to help you score better. All those things that most golfers want and have the ability to do, especially in the short game. Well, we're gonna put our 100% effort into making you a better golfer.
Yeah, and something else too, Greg, that I want to share with the listeners, because it's not just the everyday golfer that's tuning into the show here. There's a lot of our fellow professionals that are listening. And something that I want to get across, and you've really done a fantastic job. I commend you on how you handle things, because this is something that unfortunately still goes on in our community, and that is the sort of the open door policy where, and what I mean by that is, we get up in the morning, we drive to, as an instructor, we drive to whatever course we're working from, we open our doors, and we kind of wait for everybody to come to us. This day and age, you have to adapt to a new way of thinking, and that is, as instructors, we have to start going out into our communities, whether it's in our local community and even beyond, and we have to take a vested interest in really being able to grow the game. The old days of just opening up the clubhouse doors and waiting for people to come and play golf and hopefully get some lessons worked in and so on and so forth are really falling by the wayside. And I think that there's unfortunately a lot of instructors out there that maybe are afraid of some of the technology that's out there, whether it be Facebook Live or some of the other thing. So they're apprehensive, or maybe they just don't know, or just decide that that's not for them. So having a lot of these different options, Greg, available, can be expanded. And I think one of the problems that the industry still has, and I know for a fact in the area that I'm in, that there are some courses that still subscribe to that old school policy where they're not doing much outreach into their community, and they're wondering why, their bottom line is getting smaller. So I commend you for what you've done with your program and reaching out.
Well, thank you. And it even goes so far as to, and this is maybe more directed to our fellow golf professionals here, is that normally people would think, boy, how do you find courses? Because every course has somebody who's teaching golf there. How do you find courses that let you come in and teach kind of their turf? Golf instructors were very territorial by nature. So how do you find places? And I say, I go to I reach out to the head professional, the general manager, and I explain to them what I do, that I find my own students basically via social media or, marketing in my own way, and I can get into how I market and stuff if you want. But what I do is I explain to them that I'm going to bring 16 new people into their facility. I ask them at the end of the course, hey, can you write a review on the facility? So they always give some positive reviews because they see it in such a nice light, and we talk about how great the facility is and wonderful they are to host us, and they're locals. So I say, hey, when you play your local golf, this is a wonderful spot to start practicing here, work on these shots here, and I explain how the course kind of is conducive to their score. So they tend to play and practice there a lot. And then the 16 people that I meet in each city, not all at once, but 4 each day over 4 days, but 8 in a school. But anyways, so the 16 people that come to see me, any golf instructor there, if they'd like their contact information, the notes from the school, I'm happy to have them turn over so they have some follow-up with the local golf instruction there so they can keep on the same page. And I feel it's good for the golf instructor, but it's also good for the student that you have somebody right there local who knows what we worked on and can work with them. And when you put all that together, I've had so many general managers say to me, boy, nobody's doing this kind of outreach. Nobody's going out in the community and finding 16 people and bringing them here to our facility that don't get lessons here. We'd love to have 16 new people walking through that door. And one general manager even told me, guy in Cherokee Valley, Mississippi, he said that people who take golf instruction tend to be their best customers. So he was excited to have 16 new people maybe walking through the door and doing that, and it opened up a nice opportunity for them and me there.
Well, exactly, and this is what I'm saying, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush and say that nobody is outreaching, because that's not true. Because I've had many on this program who may have a different approach to things, but are doing some great outreaches, whether it be through juniors or women's golf or what have you. But the truth of the matter is there are still a lot who are in this industry that are not reaching out. And you touched on a little bit about marketing and that. It's great to promote, to be advertising in magazines, and it's great to be, maybe in your local media market and that, to let the people know. But, okay, so they know that your golf course is there, and they know that you're offering lessons and that, but what are you doing to engage the community? I mean, this goes back to Sales 101. You have to engage the customer and get them involved. And I think what's happening is too many of them are working on corporate events, which is great. But again, they're not really coming up with a game plan. And what do you do with those 50 or 100 people that are coming to that corporate event? Not everybody's going to sign up for lessons, but what are you doing as far as a follow-up? And again, it goes to your 290 program. You've got a great follow-up program. So, you've put together, and I think, let me just say this, and then I'm going to get you to respond.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that impressed me the most about reading through this, Greg, tonight is the fact that on several points you said, I really thought about how this would work and how I could improve upon it. And that shows right there that you're interested in not just, it's not just about helping them play better golf, but you're interested in making it a better overall experience, and you're allowing yourself to be accessible to the people that you're working with, which is something that is a lost art, to be quite honest. And you should take a lot of pride in what you've put together here.
Well, thanks. It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I owe a lot of thanks to my wife. She's been great through the whole thing, and I bounced a lot of ideas off her because she's not a golfer, so she kind of looks at it a little bit more from a consumer standpoint and really grounds me and say, okay, don't do what's best for you. Do what's best for me, being her, the golfer, and things like that. And, so there's been a lot of benefits of being married to someone who's not a golfer and who is, a caring, compassionate person who understands what people want out there, So what she's done is she said, okay, if I spend this money, on coming to the golf school, well, what happens after, and she was the one who kind of brought stuff like that to the forefront for me and stuff like that. So, it wasn't just me. I have some mentors, whether they're business mentors, whether they're golf instructor mentors, friends, things like that I tend to lean on. Obviously her the most, but through the whole process, I can honestly say I've tried to think, okay, what's best for the golfer? Where's his pain point? Yep. He wants to improve. He's frustrated. He's not shooting lower scores. What can I do to help him? And that's really kind of what led me through every step of the way.
Yeah, and it reaches to another point too, Greg, and that is, I think that, and this is not just limited to the golf industry, it's really to any business. I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make when they get into business is they chase the money. They're focusing on the dollars, they're focusing on the revenue, and not always putting out the best product or service. And I think as a golf professional, I think if you take the time to create, and it's not just a lesson plan, but to create an experience that is going to be memorable. And I like the fact that you reached outside of the golf community, vis-a-vis your wife and others.
Yeah.
And got their perspective as a consumer, because that is critical. Understanding how a consumer thinks and reacts to a situation, because really all we're doing is we're plugging in golf lessons and we're plugging in, but it could be any product or any service, and the same analogy applies. So it's important that as instructors that we listen to people outside of our own community as much as we listen inside, because it's great for you and I to have a conversation as mutual instructors, and we can share a lot of information. But it's also good to get outside information from somebody that's not have a vested interest in the golf industry or is a general consumer, let's say, on what they would like to see, what kind of an experience they want to have. And by utilizing that in your perspective, I think is making a very successful platform that you've been building on here for some time.
Yeah, thanks. I think that what I've done by creating this is I let my heart kind of guide me this way, because I love being around golf. I love teaching golf, and kind of fell into it a little bit, and that was the only thing I really knew how to do. So but then what I did from there, once I got into it, I tried to put the customer first. Okay, what are their pain points? What can we solve? Once we do solve these, what happens when they reoccur? What can we do to make it less expensive for them? What can we do that make it easier for them? What can we do to help them play more golf, have more enjoyment? Even our our drills and our games, everything about it that we do, is all about how do we put more fun in the game? How do we put more enjoyment in the game? And I think when you build a program like that, the success follows, and even so much, trying to take the fear out of it and stuff like that, and we've done pretty well with it. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. And that's exactly my point about not chasing the money is you want to build a platform and provide a service and or products that the consumers not only want, but are going to see a benefit from, obviously, again, improving their golf game. And when you do that and provide a top-notch level of service, the money will take care of itself. And, so for you instructors that are listening to the program, I hope you're taking some notes. And if not, then go back and listen to this broadcast a little bit later when it's convenient. And listen to this segment, because really what Greg is doing, and again, I'm not saying you have to copy, verbatim what he's doing as far as offering, golf schools and things like that. But a lot of the initiatives that he's taken might very well benefit your career as well. So some great tips and some great thoughts. So Greg, obviously the most important thing that we want to get out there tonight is for those that may be listening that are interested in maybe getting involved in one of your schools, how do they go about reaching out to you?
I think the easiest way, first and foremost, is my phone. If I don't answer it, it's only because I'm with someone at that time. But as soon as the school's over, I get right back to it. But my telephone number is 813-580-6282. That's probably the easiest way for somebody to get a hold of me. If they want to find me on social media, they want to look into my programs or things like that, you can go to Facebook and type in the search bar Break 30, the movement improvement, Twitter, Greg Thorner Golf, things like that. Send me a message, send me a text, send me an email, Get Golf Schools, getgolfschools@gmail.com. Any of those will work for me. And then on my Facebook page, on my pinned post, you'll find the list of cities that I go to. I mainly stay east of the Mississippi. Like I said, I visit 30 cities. They're all, I would say kind of mid-sized cities. I do a lot of things like Charleston, South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. But then we do Charlottesville, Virginia, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Knoxville, Memphis, Nashville. I do a swing like that. Those are, kind of similar sized cities that we do, Birmingham, Huntsville, in the Alabamas. So that's just a few cities. I don't want to, bore about the details, but you can find all that information. If you can't, call me. I'll get it to you, or call me, tell me what city you're in. You never know. Maybe that'll be one of the 5 that I expand to in 2019 as I take it from 30 to 35 cities.
Perfect. Well, I have no doubt, pardon me, Greg, that with the platform that you've been building on, that you'll reach those 35 cities no problem, and I'm sure even beyond. And as I said, it's a great model that you've put together. It's obviously done well for you, and I think it may be something, especially maybe for some new instructors out there that are trying to find their niche, Again, I'm not saying or suggesting you necessarily need to copy exactly what Greg's doing. You obviously have to find what works for you and what you're passionate about. But there's some great tips and some little nuggets in there that might help you develop a good program that you can offer your students. But the most important thing is, reaching out to the communities. If we truly want to grow this game, the game is not being grown at the tour level. It's great to watch these, these men and women play week in, week out, battling it on the big screen and out on the golf courses like we did this past weekend at the Masters. But the truth of the matter is, it's really at a grassroots level that we're going to grow this game and sustain this game. But at the same time, we have to do it with integrity and authority to be able to help people bring those scores down, because that's an area that really has not happened for a long time. And we not only want to get people coming to the game, but we need to offer great products and services to be able to keep people in the game. It's one thing to get them, in through the door, but it's another thing to keep them there. And that's, again, having a great follow-up program, Greg, as you've offered here, is a great way to accomplish that. So, well, Greg, I hate to say this, but that was the fastest hour I think that I've done in a long time. So we've got a few minutes left here, but I've got to close out the program, obviously. But I want to thank you, Greg, for coming on, and it was well worth the wait. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Love the chance of getting on and chance to share my story and who I am and what I'm all about. And like I said, I hope I added some value to your show. I appreciate the opportunity to do this. So.
Well, Greg, I have no doubt that you added value, and I appreciate it. And I hope the many followers that you have as well through your social media have taken the time to listen tonight and hear maybe a little bit more that they maybe didn't know about you. And I appreciate you. You're welcome to come back anytime and throw your hat in the ring. As I say, either another segment like this, or maybe at some point you might even want to jump in on one of the Coach's Corner panels and get involved with some of your fellow professors. But again, Greg, I want to thank you for giving of your time. I know it's not always easy after a long day's work, so go and enjoy your evening, the rest of your evening with family and friends, and I hope to have you join me again here on Golf Talk Live.
Thank you very much, Ted. Have a good evening.
All right. Thank you, Greg. All right. That was my very special guest this evening, Greg Thorner, owner of Break 30, the Improvement Movement. Lots of great ways to reach Greg, and some of them, of course, is to visit him on social media. He's all over Facebook and many other social media platforms. And let me just remind you very quickly, if you go to Facebook, you can get him. His personal page is Greg Thorner, and it's Thorner. You can also follow him on Twitter. It's at Greg Thorn Golf. Or if you go to Facebook and type in Break 30 Movement Improvement, you can find it there as well and learn more about his schools. Great fellow professional, and has got a great business platform and model that's obviously a very successful one, and something, as I said, throughout the show, something that you want to take special note of. I think he's got some great ideas here, and obviously it's serving him well. I want to take another opportunity to thank a couple of the guys earlier, Peter Agazarian and Paul Castor, for joining me on Coach's Corner, and John Hughes, of course. John, I hate that you weren't able to hang in with us, and unfortunately these things happen sometimes with technical issues, but always enjoy your thoughts and inputs into the program, and wish you were able to stay connected with us, but we'll get you next time. But thanks, guys, for doing a great job on the Coach's Corner panel. And once again, a special thank you to my evening guest on the second half of the show, Greg Thorner, owner of Break 30, the Improvement Movement. Great guest, and enjoyed having him share his thoughts and ideas with the show as well. I will be back, of course, next week with another show here, another great panel on the Coach's Corner segment, and another interesting guest next Thursday evening from 6 to 8 here on blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live. So make sure you tune in. And I just want to thank a few of the sponsors and supporters of the show. Mr. Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide. Go to southcoastgolfguide.com. and great publication. You can find some great courses throughout the southeastern part of the United States. You'll find them there in the South Coast Golf Guide, or you can visit them online at southcoastgolfguide.com and get much of the same information. Meredith Kirk from Meredith Kirk Golf, great LPGA teacher professional out in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area. Thank you, Meredith, for all of your continued support as well. And also Nikki and Tiffany Litherland, great golf professional Nikki is, and his lovely wife Tiffany. Thank you for all of your continued support in helping spread the word. Mr. Bernie Pinder from Ontic Golf. Visit onticgolf.com and see his great line of customized putters. Go to onticgolf.com. Sean Kelly, owner of linkedgolfers.com. Great network brought to you from his golf group on LinkedIn. Linked Golfers was a great group there, and he's brought it out to his own social media platform, one of the largest, if not the largest, golf group on the LinkedIn network. And also Mr. Peter Doyle, Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland. Thank you, Peter, for all of your continued support as well. And on that note, I want to thank all of you, the many fans and supporters of the show that tune in faithfully each and every week from literally around the world. It's through your listenership and through the many guests that I'm honored to have on the show that really make Golf Talk Live a first-class show and make me want to be here every Thursday evening from 6 to 8. I enjoy it very much. I enjoy engaging with my fellow professionals and also meeting and learning some great tips myself along the way. But thank you for listening, and I will see you next Thursday right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody, and I'll see you next week.